My name is Anthony Shane Humphreys. I'm in Laurie Battle's Standards and Practices class for fall 2013, course number CRJ 340. My PowerPoint that I chose to use for this class and for my presentation is going to be the Code of Silence. Code of Silence can be a very touchy subject when it comes to police, and especially the media and the community. Some people see it as a good thing, some people see it as a bad thing, some people just don't even know what it is. So we're going to go over that a little bit today. Code of Silence. What is the Code of Silence? The Code of Silence is called many things, such as the Blue Curtain of Secrecy, the Blue Veil, simply the Code of Silence, stuff like that. It refers to the subcultural code of don't give up another cop. I'm not going to tell on my brother. I'm not going to tell on my friend. I'm not going to tell on my coworker. Basically, I'm going to hide anything that he or she does so that they don't get in trouble. This is the way. This is what it is. There's no other way around it. It can be related to some things such as students or players, not giving up other students or players, such as I'm a big Alabama football fan. An Alabama player does something wrong, another player's not going to give them up, especially if it's a really key player, quarterback, running back, someone that is known to propel them to wins. So they will bend over backwards to hide stuff that they may have done that was wrong, whether it be ethically, whether it be criminally, stuff like that. So that's the Code of Silence. The need for the code. Ethical dilemmas facing officers. Police officers face many ethical dilemmas in every day of their job. There's not a day in a law enforcement job where you get up, you go to work, and you're not subjected to some type of ethical dilemma, whether it be making sure that you charge the individual with the right charge, making sure that you don't disregard certain evidence for other evidence, or make up evidence, put evidence there, or manipulate evidence. There's so many factors that come into play whenever you're dealing with ethical dilemmas and the Code of Silence that you can't get away from it. So it becomes an everyday part of your job, whether you want it to be or not. And also, we will refer to the Code of Silence as probably just the code for the remainder of the slides. Us against them mentality. Police officers have this us against them mentality because we have to look out for ourselves. Once you put on that uniform, it's not the person that they dislike or the person that they despise. It's the uniform. It's the power. It's the authority. That's what they don't like. People see us as an authority figure, and sometimes the authority figures abuse that position to the point to where it makes it hard on the rest of us. So whether we like it or not, it really is kind of an us against them mentality, because people look at us as a whole and don't see us as a person. They see us as simply a uniform. So they treat us differently than they would a normal person on the street. The brotherhood. Law enforcement has what's termed a brotherhood in the fact of the us versus them. And we have to look out for each other, because in our daily jobs, it may come to a point where we have to use deadly force, and I've got to trust on my brother in blue, as it said, to protect me. So sometimes we overstep these boundaries of just doing the job and making sure that everybody goes home at night to their families, because we all have families just like everybody else. Let's face that fact, that sometimes we'll do whatever we have to do to make sure that person doesn't go to jail, or that cop doesn't get in trouble for stepping over his boundaries in the heat of the moment. Trust within the department. If you can't trust your brothers in your department, it's going to make it very hard for you to work with them. So the Code of Silence, that's probably where it comes into play the most. I have to be able to trust you to take care of me. Issues causing use of the code. Bribery. Bribery is probably one of the bigger ones, because in law enforcement, it may not be an outright bribe of, I'll give you this much money if you let me get away with this traffic stop, or if you just throw away some of that dope that you found in my pocket. It may be, hey, let me give you a cup of coffee for just stepping in. Or let me give you a discount on this meal for sitting here and eating while you're eating lunch. That may not be an outright bribe, but in a sense, they're paying you for your service on top of what you're already getting paid. The salary for police officers isn't all that great, so most police officers are not going to turn this down. They're going to take that meal, they're going to take that cup of coffee or that drink, and they're going to stand there for a few extra minutes and provide that extra security. Is there something wrong with that? In some people's eyes, maybe so. But for a law enforcement officer that works a ton of hours for a little bit of money, I mean, that's hard to turn down. Misconduct. Let's say that you got this mentality that, okay, I got to get to this scene as fast as I can, so I'm going to just blow the speed limit out of the water. So if it's 35, I'm going to do 55, or I'm going to do 60. Or in order to get somebody under arrest power, you throw them to the ground when they were passively resisting instead of actively resisting. You went a step way too far beyond what you're doing. The misconduct can be for the use of the code. If I see another brother do something wrong, I may turn my head the other way and say I didn't see it, or I may not, depending on what type of officer I am. Violation of the laws, traffic. Most people, when you pull them over, will say, well, if I was an officer, or I worked on the force, you wouldn't have given me a ticket for this. You would let me go. Maybe, maybe not. It comes to that us against them thing. If you were a lawyer and your partner in your law firm was being sued, would you not back that lawyer because he's part of your firm? Or a teacher giving a test and may have skewed the test? You never know. A teacher may cover for a teacher. A lawyer may cover for a lawyer. I think it applies to all jobs. I think it just becomes more of a problem when it gets into law enforcement, because a lot of times it deals with breaking the law. Racial profiling. I'm not saying it does happen. I'm not saying it doesn't happen. But if you've got a track record of only pulling over black males, or only pulling over Hispanic males, or white females, or any certain demographic of people, you may actually be racial profiling, and then your other fellow officers may be looking the other way because you're making cases. So they may just say, okay, well, he makes arrests, he makes cases, he writes tickets, so we're going to let it go. That's not right, and it's not an excuse for it. There's many reasons for this. All right, corruption caused by using the code of silence. A spiral of misconduct and unethical choices. Once you start using the code of silence and you start looking the other way and you start making excuses, it becomes a spiral effect. It's only going to get bigger and it's only going to get worse. So you have to be careful of that. Ostracizing of those that speak out. If a person finally does speak out and say, man, I can't cover for you this time. It's just not right. That person may be ostracized and turned down for promotions by administration. They may be actually forced out of the unit they're in or out of the department they're in into a different department. Firing or removal of those that speak out. It goes back to ostracizing. Someone may be actually removed from their position for giving up a fellow officer or an administration member. Is this something that can be fought legally through the court system? Yes. But is it gonna be something that's going to be handled immediately? No. Anytime you use the court system, it's going to take a while. So, this is probably something that causes others not to speak up. Cover-ups. Covering up, throwing out evidence, or not writing that ticket, or tearing up tickets for a friend. Things like this, you're covering for other officers because that's their friend, or that's what they need you to do for them. Loyalty to the corrupt. If you got a corrupt administrator, and the administrator says, hey, look, you hang in there, you do what I need you to do, and you cover for things that I need you to cover for me, I'm going to move you up. They're going to put you on the fast track promotion. That says a lot, and that will cause some officers to say, okay, I'll do it. Monetary corruption. As we said before, police officers don't make a lot of money. Law enforcement is one of those jobs, especially in smaller rural counties or smaller urban areas, that these people are making very little money for doing a sometimes lethal job. So they'll do anything to make that extra buck. Is the code unethical? Is it wrong to give another officer a pass on traffic violations? Is it wrong to stand up for an officer that used too much force? Or is it wrong to not report an officer for lying about the amount of money he received off of a drug bust or off of a traffic stop? Is it unethical? I think, yes, it is unethical for all of these decisions. But how unethical is it to help a friend out? Or this is one of those things that I find to be a very controversial subject, because most people are going to give that code of silence or that brotherhood a little extra leeway than they would the regular citizen that broke a speeding law or broke a red light violation. I think it's very hard to turn down that help. But is it unethical? Yes, I think it's unethical in any fashion or form. What is ethical by the code? Is the us against them mentality the cause? I think yes, it is. Police officers see it, the us versus them, as, hey, we got to look out for us. Forget them. They can't put us in jail, so we'll look out for us. I think that, yes, this is the cause. And when is it okay to give a pass? Is it okay to give a pass on just a traffic stop, or what about a drug violation? What about a DUI? I mean, I've seen officers every day get put in jail for DUI by other officers. I mean, is it wrong to put an officer in jail for DUI? No, it's not. It's you're doing your job. But at the same time, you're going to be ostracized, as spoken before in the past slide. What is wrong with giving an officer a break? If you're giving them a break on breaking the law, then you're breaking the law. You're not doing your job, and you're not doing your civic duty to enforce that law that you swore to uphold. Who is it to say it is wrong if nobody is hurt using the code? Man, I just was going 10 miles an hour with the speed limit. Can't you cut me a break? Did you cut the last person a break that was doing 10 miles an hour with speed limit? That's something you got to start weighing. If you're going to do it for one, why are you doing it for another? Effects of the code. It starts to bring distrust within the department. It leads to bigger and more corrupt crimes. It starts to become acceptable and expected by all officers in the department. It makes officers become what they set out to stop: criminals. Let's face it, we all got in this job to do the right thing and help stop crime. If you start becoming the criminal, then what was the point of becoming a police officer? That's something to think about. Is there a future with the code? Can the code of silence be used at all? I don't think so. I don't think that the code of silence can be used, especially by the information that I received through the textbook and the website that I did choose to use for this. I don't think it can be used and be used properly, because in order to use it properly, you've got to lie. I mean, that's not the right thing to do. It's unethical. Is there any future for an officer or agency that tolerates the code of silence? I don't think there is. I think once an officer starts to tolerate the code of silence and it spreads throughout the department as an accepted norm, then it's going to take over like wildfire, and it's going to cause corruption throughout the department. What should be done about the code of silence? I think the code of silence should be more or less done away with, and that the officers should just enforce the laws as they swore to do when they took office, and take that extra step to be the person, the role model for those citizens that we chose to serve. The references for this slideshow and this presentation are going to be the textbook Ethical Dilemmas and Decisions in Criminal Justice by Jocelyn Pollock. The Real Police website is the website I used. Here's the URL. The website had a lot of information, and it pretty much mirrored what the textbook said, in that the code of silence, it's accepted and it's used, and it probably will be for all time as far as law enforcement is concerned, but it doesn't make it ethical or morally right. That's going to be the end of the slideshow. Thank you very much.